beautiful warm day. Every kid in the world must be outside enjoying the sunshine, right? Well, maybe not. While it might be warm and sunny where you are, the weather can be very different at other places in the world.
It could be pouring rain,
Or freezing cold and snowy.
or scorching hot. But why do different places have such different weather?
Sounds like a question for our kid weather watchers around the world. Learning about the weather is just like learning about anything else. You have to investigate. Are you ready? Okay then, let's go. Hang on, weather watchers, because you're about to enter the climate zone. Remember, there are all kinds of climates on Earth. Hot and dry, cold and snowy, warm and rainy, and everything in between. But to make it a little easier to understand, meteorologists have them grouped into 3 basic zones. That's right, climate zones. Okay, weather watchers, let's have them.
We'll start at the top. The bottom. The top and the bottom. The polar zones are at both the North and South poles.
Polar climate is very cold because, as we've seen, the very top and bottom of the Earth get no direct sunlight at all. So there's not much warming up going on there. In fact, it's generally freezing. Okay, next zone.
If it's warming up you want, then the place to be is the tropical zone. It's easy to find. Just follow the equator all the way around the world.
Remember, the equator is the part of the Earth that's generally the hottest. In the tropical zone, the climate is usually hot and can be rainy. One more zone to go.
I guess I'm stuck in the middle, in the temperate zone, in between the polar zone and the tropical zone.
Places in temperate zones can be cold and snowy in the winter and can get pretty hot during the summer. This wide range of temperatures and conditions is no surprise. It's part of the climate. Just because we know a place is in a particular climate zone, it doesn't mean that we can be sure of the weather there. Lots of different things can affect the weather, and you can check it out just by looking in your own backyard.
Hey, it's warmer in the sun than in the shade.
Of course, places that get more sunlight usually have a warmer climate than those that don't.
I noticed that it's usually hotter on the concrete than it is on the grass, even when they're both in the sun.
Right again. Some things like concrete heat up better than others. That's one reason why cities are usually warmer than the country. What else?
On some cold mornings, there's a frost on the grass, but near the house there isn't any.
That's because the heat from the house keeps the dew on the grass from freezing. That's kind of like what happens in places near the ocean during the winter. The warm air over the ocean can keep those places warm enough so they get rain instead of snow. There are other things besides how far a place is from the equator that influence its climate. But let's not just talk about it. It's time for a field trip. First, pack your gear. You're off to the beach. Then you're headed to the mountains. And finally, you'll be going inland, away from any oceans. Okay, here's our first report, just in from the beach.
As I traveled closer to the ocean, I noticed a change in the weather. I expected it to be all sunny, but there were also a lot of clouds, and then it rained. The people who live here tell me it's like that a lot.
Great report. Being close to water, like the ocean, is one of the things that can greatly affect climate. For one thing, it's not surprising that it rained. After all, rain is water. So it makes sense that places near a body of water tend to get more rain than places far from water. Places near the ocean tend to have warmer winters and cooler summers than places far from the water. That's because water heats up and cools down much slower than land does. So in the summer, the cool water keeps the air cooler too. And in the winter, it's the opposite. The warmer water keeps the air from getting so cold. Here's an easy way to see for yourself how water changes temperature slower than land does. Take two identical bowls and fill one with plain old water, the other with dirt and rocks. Let them sit out on the counter for a couple of hours so they're both at room temperature. Now place them both next to each other in the sunlight. Use a thermometer to take the temperature of both the water and the dirt every 15 minutes over the course of a few hours. Be sure to write down the temperatures and observe any changes over time. What you'll find is that the dirt and rocks in the bowl got warm much faster than the water did. It's the same idea with land and oceans. Land heats up faster in the summer and cools off faster in the winter than oceans do. And that affects the temperature of the air above. Because the air above the land and water are often at different temperatures, it can often be rather breezy at the beach. During the heat of a spring or summer day, cooler winds tend to blow from the ocean toward the land. That's called a sea breeze. At night, it's the opposite. That's called a land breeze. Okay, next report in from the mountains.
Well, it was quite a climb, but we finally made it, and boy was it wild. It was raining, but warm at the bottom of the mountain, but as we got to the top, it got cloudier, windier, and much colder. Before I knew it, we were coming down the other side. There it got warmer and sunny. What a change.
Ah, what brave souls. The weather in the mountains can change from moment to moment. That's part of the climate. In general, the higher up you go, the colder it gets. So places up high usually have colder climates than places down lower.
But why was the weather different on each side of the mountain?
Well, as winds blow up one side, the air cools down, and that creates clouds.
And when you have clouds, you usually get rain or snow.
Exactly. But on the other side of the mountain, it can be a completely different story. Air blows down that side. As it does, it warms up and dries out. That means fewer clouds.
And fewer clouds means less rain.
One more report from the field. And what a field it is. Check this out.
My journey took me inland, away from any oceans or mountains. What I found left me feeling kind of flat. Actually, that is what I found. Flat ground and lots of it. And lots of blue sky, too.
This giant area of flat land is called a plain. Remember those dry winds that blow down the side of a mountain? Well, they often keep blowing right across the plains. This gives plains a climate with lots of sun and wind, but not much rain. And being far from large bodies of water can also mean some pretty extreme temperatures on plains found in the temperate zone. Really hot in the summer and really cold in the winter. Let's review what we've learned about climate so far.
Climate is the average weather of a place over a long period of time.
Check.
Climate is described in many different ways, like temperature, how hot and cold it gets, precipitation, how much it rains or snows in a year, how cloudy it gets, how many days are foggy, and how windy it can be.
Check.
There are different climates all over the world, and the main reason is the sun. The closer a place is to the equator, the warmer its climate, because that's where the Earth gets the most direct sunlight. The farther from the equator, the colder the climate.
Check.
So we understand what climate is,
But we still have one big question.
why does the weather change so much throughout the year?